Now
This
that
conference will now be recorded.
the sidewalk replacement program, kind of tying that into the active transportation plan as well as safe routes to school, and taking that going forward. So that was the majority of safety and service, with the next meeting in February, like I said, probably going to be highlighted by our conversation with AEP. I think that was it.
Great. Any questions for Ben? If not, we'll move on to finance, which met on December the 7th. And it will next meet on the 19th of January at 5 o'clock. Ben, is there any need to report anything from finance?
Yeah, we reviewed finance last time, so it was right before our last meeting. We'll just have one coming up here for the year.
Okay, great. We'll move right along. Economic Development met on December the 3rd. It's going to meet on Thursday, this Thursday at 10 a.m. That'll be a virtual meeting. And Parks and Rec met on the 10th of December, and it will next meet on the 14th of January. Anybody else have anything, any council members to discuss about committee?
Yeah. Committee, that's all. Whose lap is that in now, Jack?
The ponds? Mine. I've started to draft letters to send out to the HOA. Yep. So that is back to
Okay.
Real quick, Cheryl, I had to mute you because they're getting some feedback on yours. So if you go to talk, just unmute yourself.
I have a question, Jack.
yes.
I was out today taking a walk this beautiful day, and I always check the lavatory, the bathroom, whatever, up at the trailhead.
Okay.
It needs attention. Who takes care of that?
Usually the service department takes it. Can you tell me what type of attention it needs?
Well, the thrown stuff, stuff is thrown on the floor, not all
on the inside. Okay.
It is smelled. So
okay, I will.
I realize it's so cold out. I didn't know. I didn't even think people would be using it, but they have been.
Well, I will get the service crew up there to take a look at it and see, what we need to do.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know.
I was only kidding about a beautiful day.
Okay.
It wasn't bad.
Next up is director's reports.
Okay. We'll start with water. And, a lot of this is repetitive month to month. We just produced slightly under 13 million gallons through the 28th of December. We worked on our shutoffs and work orders. We did have a valve replacement in our decant tanks, and we had to do some work on one of our hydrate lime feeders. At the end of this month, obviously, we're going to get our totals for the year. Oh, I see Jim's got some graphs up there. Those can't be.
You don't think your guys did that? No.
No. I guess what I was going to say, we will have our totals for the year and comparisons from last year. And depending on how I can make it look, we'll have a 5-year just to show our flows over the last 5 years. Did you want to interject something before?
Yeah, so I sent out a message, I think, early December of trying to visualize a lot of this data because you guys don't want to fall asleep listening to a lot of this stuff. So what Jack just said on the 5-year trend is this is the 1-year trend. So this is 2020 water production. It's just good to see over, actually this is 2019 in green and 2020, just to see what we're doing. We can overlay, this one isn't, but you know, it's interactive. You can just get more information and get more than just numbers out of this data. We're going to implement it with the police chief and his stats, zoning stats. You know, we have all the information. It's just visualizing it a little bit better. So,
Great.
and it'll all be linked so our crew can just type in the number and it's automatically published. They don't have to worry about a thing other than, you know, just making sure they input the numbers correctly. So as you can see, this is water production, and I'm sure there's some, you know, July of 2020, everyone was home and everybody was watering their yards. So look at the graph and it tells you what we're doing.
So Jim, are you saying that link you've sent to me?
No,
Okay, because as I say, I
nope.
don't remember.
No, I wanted to make sure I could get it to work before I asked you all to do it.
Okay, because I have been talking with the guys. We were going to create a graph, but this is great if you've got this put together where they can enter it monthly. Because we were going to show you a 2-year trend and then a 5-year trend as well, but we'll work with whatever you've got here. That's good.
Yep, this is, we can make it whatever we want.
Sure. The 5-year trend gets a little harder to see. We moved into a bar graph there. We're just experimenting because I knew you said you wanted a little more of a visual, but yes, let's, when we got the hookup or link to this, just let me know.
Yep.
And really that's all we have for water at this time. Sewer, of course, we had some rain. You see the flow jumped up to the almost 17 million gallons. Again, pressed solids, hauled solids. Rick's been working pretty hard on the GIS, getting the sewer lines on the mapping, getting that in there. So Rick's got that. And again, we'll have graphs for the wastewater also. Jumping into the street department, we have a couple highlights here. As I told you earlier in the safety service, the Westview shut down till spring. Although I agree with the comment of how much nicer it is already, just with the base coat on it. Of course, that'll be dressed up in the spring. Street department's been working very hard. Mike and David DeVore getting the storm lines mapped and on the mapping. Says here about 20% done. Actually, they've moved a lot since this was done, so they're doing a good job on that. But what I did want to highlight here is the school zone signs in Leafydale are up and have been up, and then the speed limit signs have been moved and they are up. And I know that was something that we were waiting on. We got that cleared up and installed. And the very last item, winter snow plowing and salting. We've used about 66 tons of salt during the couple snow events we've had, and about 118 man hours spent plowing.
Are they tracking that through iWorks as well?
Yes, that's tracking that through iWorks.
Great.
So, any questions on any of the 3 departments?
Any questions for Jack?
Streets look great with those snow events that we had, especially over Christmas. So no, it was probably a hard decision to bring in those folks, but it paid off. Everything looked great. Really appreciate street department getting out there and getting the roads taken care of.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That snow come right on the 2 holidays, you know, that, you know, guys are normally expecting to have a little bit of time off, but they came in and worked through the night. Like I said, just in those 2 snow events, and then we had a little one after 118 hours. I mean, so they were out there, they were working at it and did a nice job.
Let me ask you, how did the new snow plow?
New truck worked
New truck.
very, very well.
Okay, good
Yep,
to hear.
very happy with it. Our older 550s, we doing a lot of battling, a lot of maintenance on them. It's of course one of them I think is due to be replaced next year, but yep, that salting and plowing is hard on the vehicles, but the new truck performed very well.
Good to hear. Next up, I guess, Jim, do you have something?
Not really. I was trying to put something together and I was off for 2 weeks, and prior to that I was off for 2 weeks with COVID, and I mean, I don't have much to tell you guys other than what you've already either seen through email or Basecamp. What I do want to let you know is I really will be pushing this year to have our staff create these agenda reports because I think it lends more context to the legislation you receive instead of just seeing legislation and be like, oh, that's great, Jim. You know, give me some context. So we're going to be doing that as well. You just saw what we did with the graphs and trying, you know, just to make sure you're getting the information and actually being able to digest it and actually learn something from it. So we're doing that. So those are two big things I want to push this year from a council staff relationship standpoint, just so you guys are a little more aware of what we're trying to accomplish through the projects and with the reports. So that's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Any questions for Jim? If not, we'll move along. Chief, do you have anything you want to report to us?
I don't. I'm kind of in the same boat where it's just been so busy, and I took a little bit of time off towards the end of last month. I do plan on tackling the next director's report where I'll get about a month and a half, 2 months of information that I want to throw at you.
Okay. We'll look forward to receiving it.
30 days at a time is all we got.
So make that 30 days worth of data.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief?
No, sir.
If not, we'll move right along and move to legislation. And first up is ordinance 38-2020, an ordinance adopting chapter 1171.04, accessory dwelling units of the codified ordinances of the Village of Johnstown. Bailey, you want to give us some background on this?
Sure. This is an ordinance that was forwarded from Planning and Zoning, and it is an ordinance that would allow accessory dwelling units. There are some rules within that ordinance. So accessory dwelling units would only be allowed in the SR and RR zoning districts. I think that we'd like to see, you know, if this ordinance passes, we'd like to see how accessory dwelling units go in those districts before we consider maybe extending it to PUD or UR districts. And you can see some size regulations in there and some regulations on how many people can live in an ADU. So this ordinance is really geared, you know, planning and zoning would like to see it really geared towards family members. Of course, we understand that that's hard to regulate 100%, but I think that planning and zoning has done the best that they could to try and make it easy for people who want their family members to live with them to have their own space. So I think that that's some pretty good background for you guys. Ben, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I think that is pretty valid context because it was a lot of discussion that went into it to get to the result that we have. A lot of deliberation and back and forth, and really pared down from what we originally started with. The only other thing that I would add before consideration for a vote is I would like to see this tabled tonight. I think there are some additional items that are tangentially related to ADUs that may need some further discussion within planning and zoning before moving forward with this ordinance as it's written, just to shore up any unintended consequences from the ADU. I still think accessory dwelling units are valid, and I think they serve a need within the community because we continue to have requests and questions about them on an annual basis. But I think there are some pieces related to the definition of accessory units, lot coverage requirements, and things of that nature that just need an additional once over within planning and zoning, in my opinion. And those items I intend to bring up on the 12th for our first planning and zoning meeting of the year. So that would just be the additional piece that I would add to that.
So Ben, are you making a motion?
Well, I wanted to get through any other discussion. I'm happy to make the motion to table it, but didn't want to stifle any discussion beforehand.
Okay. So given that, do any other council members have any questions or discussion?
I have a question on, you say accessory unit, okay, they have a family member staying there, but the family member passes away, so they rent that area out, right? They can,
Yes, they can.
but
They can. It's kind of, we've done the best that we can, but it's hard for us to tell someone, it's hard for us to regulate that.
So then why would we want to have this available if we're going to increase more rentals in our village when that is something where we don't want to do? We want to have more ownership during renting out. And you just terrorized me when you said you would like to expand it to the PUDs, which is Concord Crossing. That's the last thing I would want to see in my neighborhood. It would bring down the value. If somebody wants their mom and dad to live with them, expand their house, put on an extra room. I don't see this. Is this happening in Dublin or Westerville? Do they have anything like this, Bailey?
So far, no.
Okay.
We looked at Yellow Springs, we looked at Hudson, Ohio. I'm trying to remember. Those were the 2 Ohio communities we looked at.
I really would not like to see that here in Johnstown. I mean, if I can just see this going wrong. I don't see this being a good thing to happen for the village. So I'm just saying I'm totally against it. Might as well just know it. I'm totally against it. So yeah, I think we should table it, but no, I'm not for it.
I am totally against it also because there's like where I live, if I build a unit on, gosh, I mean, I don't have much space where, I mean, yardage anyway. And I suppose you can't keep people from building even if they have a small lot. So if they have a couple acres, okay, we might consider it, but not in Concord Crossing. Most of us don't have just a small lot. Other than Cheryl, she's got 2.
Let's say Sharon at the moment, and Cheryl, the PUD would not be included in this. It would be those that have large sizes. But I think that with what we have discussed, what we could potentially discuss that I intend to bring up on Tuesday in planning and zoning, that there could be some outcomes that might assuage some concerns about how our current zoning code is listed relative to what could be ADUs. But I think that the topics that I plan on bringing up are well supported to look at entertaining on their own merits. Regardless, in my opinion, I think ADUs, as it's written today, should be tabled for further consideration as some things are tied up in the background. But I still see them as a valid addition to offerings for those with larger lots within the village. SR1s and rural residential, which for all intents and purposes, rural residential lots could consist of lots 3 acres and larger. So I think those types of lots would definitely benefit from having it as an option.
I'd like to continue studying this, and I was wondering, Bailey, if you could possibly get some feedback from Hudson and Yellow Springs about how it's working out, and because I'm still considering it. I'm not totally opposed to it. But then I guess at the beginning, I was getting a lot of information that was maybe incorrect. And so I do want to see maybe more study about it. I don't want to close the door on it yet. I'm not that totally opposed to it.
I can contact them.
Can I make a comment, Chip? The only zoning district in the village of Johnstown, as the legislation is currently being presented, that an ADU would be allowed would be in Raccoon Creek Estates. And the smallest lot in there is 13,000 some square feet, up to over 20,000 square feet. The cost of putting one of these on your property is probably going to be, because you have to do normal water and sewer tap. You'll have to have a complete foundation. You'll have to have Licking County Building Codes inspection plans. Roof pitch will be controlled. Everything to match the house on the ADU. You're probably talking about $70,000, $80,000. So the only place, like I said, that would be legally that we have now, where we have homes, would be in Raccoon Creek Estates.
I think you got deed restrictions against buildings like that, Jim.
Yep.
Raccoon Estates, you can't even have a detached garage.
Well, I think based on Ben's recommendation, we,
I'll take his, Ben, you want to make your motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to table ordinance 38-2020.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Teresa, call the roll.
Carol Robertson,
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Carol Van Diest,
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher.
Yes. Ordinance 38-2020 is tabled. Moving on. Ordinance 39-2020, an ordinance establishing section 171.08, use of electronically created citations in the codified ordinances of the Village of Johnstown. It was introduced on December the 8th. Tonight, we're scheduled to have a public hearing and a vote. Chief, do you want to give us any insight?
So I don't have anything further to add than what I presented last month. I'm open to questions if council or the public has them.
I'm gonna open the public hearing. I'm gonna close the public hearing. I'm gonna, council members, anybody has any questions, comments, now's the time to do that.
Did you find out what the cost was going to be when we get everything we need for them and stuff? Chief?
Yes, so the cost on our end, it looked like there was not going to be any upfront cost on our end. There was a possibility that we might need cables. However, until we get the physical devices, the cables themselves would have been approximately $8 a piece, and that would have been for 5 vehicles. But the upfront cost, the grant, if I were to write the grant and be approved for the grant, it would cover the mounting brackets and the printers, as well as the initial paper. And then the paper cost itself was cheaper than the actual units of a physical carbon or NCR copied paper that we're using right now for our citations.
Chief, I have a question. Is it possible you use this in any of your other positions?
Yes, so if I were to write the grant, this is just legislation to basically say that us as the Village of Johnstown, we will recognize that the court will recognize e-citations. So once that gets put into place on a law on our end, basically it allows me to write for the grant. And when I write for the grant, if approved, then they provide the equipment. Now, with that said, it just means as part of their program, it being State Department of Public Safety, they want to look at the data that we're generating right now as it is, like who's getting tickets for what. And basically that's what it comes down to. So we would share our data with them. That doesn't cost us anything because our current CAD system, being TAC, is going to automatically upload the information to the state of Ohio anyway. And the information that they're requesting is public information anyhow. So did that answer your question?
Well, kind of. I just wondered, you know, in other, I know you were, I believe, in Lancaster. I just wanted to know if you had any experience with e-tickets being used in other municipalities. I was just curious.
My personal experience is no. So I haven't worked directly with them. It's technology that's out there. Like the
Yeah.
sheriff's office, our current sheriff's office, Lake County Sheriff's Office, they use them now. And it's one of those things where we can use it as little or as much as we want to. So I can write a policy that says they're only to be used for citations. However, if we wanted to pay for the paper, if let's say a resident was to walk up to a patrol car and say, "Hey, I'm lost," which does commonly happen, "Can you give me directions to this place?" Instead of saying, "Yeah, absolutely, I can go left here, left there, right there," and then they kind of end up confused about it. We actually would just print them a map with instructions, and then we just physically hand it to them right out the window. In addition to that, it's also a possibility that we could print forms directly from the car. So it really kind of opens up a door that we can do more from the patrol vehicles. It becomes more of a mobile office than it does a patrol car at that point. But that's something I'm going to look at from an administrative aspect. Is like right now, my gut tells me just to print the e-tickets off of it as of now. But it's one of those things where it's just based on how much we want to help the public. And I'm all about helping the public. I love the community. So anything I could do to make their lives easier, and anything I could do to increase productivity within the department, so it really cuts down drastically on writing the citations, and it gets officers right back out on the streets where they should be patrolling.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
I talked to Columbus, two different Columbus police officers about them, and they said that they didn't apply for grants or anything. They'd been so expensive over there that the only place they was using them was about half of the freeway patrol had them. None of the street officers had them. And I was gonna call highway patrol, but you might be getting in on the cutting edge, especially is Licking County using them, you said?
Yeah, so the sheriff's office uses it, and from what I understand, the state highway patrol is also using them.
I would imagine a state highway patrol would be using them.
It's their program. That's who the grant's coming from, is the Department of Public Safety. Now, with that said, though, this is just placing the ordinance to say that we're going to recognize them. So let's say we decide not to use them this year or next year, but 10 years from now we decide to use them, then we don't have to go through this process again. It just simply gives us the foundation that we will recognize the use of electronic citations.
In other words, if we don't get the grant, they're not going to be in the budget next year.
Correct.
Okay.
Or let's say the village manager says, "I'm not interested in doing this right now. Let's go ahead and hold off on it." At which time I take his direction, we hold off on it. We still have the law in place that would recognize the fact that we accept them. So 3 years from now, he goes, "Let's revisit it and do it again." And there is or isn't a grant. Any way you look at it, we have to have the law. If we're going to do electronic citations, it needs to be written in the law that we're going to do it.
Anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Teresa?
Doug Laner.
Yes.
Marvin Block.
Yes.
Ben Lee.
Yes.
Sharon Hendren.
Yes.
Carol Van Diest.
yes.
Mayor Dutcher.
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson.
Yes.
Okay. Moving right along. Next up is resolution 2021-01. A resolution authorizing the village manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water supply revolving loan account, WSRLA, agreement on behalf of the village of Johnstown for construction of the water facilities and designate a dedicated repayment source for the loan. Jim or Jack, I don't know which one.
Doesn't that explain it all right there?
It does, but
So going way back, and here is the example of the report that I plan to give on each piece of legislation or our staff members. So
it was helpful.
good. Hopefully it puts some context to what we're trying to do, but it is easier for me, I guess, just to speak. We applied for and were accepted into this program a couple months ago. Our letter of interest was approved. So now we have to formally apply. When we put the letter of interest in there, we put in the water tower, the 310 water line, and the Croton Road water line. a lot of things have changed since then. It is what it is. Cost has risen on the tower. We're not doing 310 and Croton Road's about done. So we've made the decision, Jack and I made the decision to only go to this pot of money for $3 million purely for the water tower. So we have the opportunity for either a zero interest loan or actually a grant. They seemed eager to give money away in their email. I may be over reading things or not, but she was very explicit in saying this has the potential to be a grant. Is that correct, Jack? Did I read that correct? So I'm not getting overly excited. So what happens if we go for this? If we go for it, we get it, it's going to be a 0 or near 0% interest. I think we're at 3.4 on our current borrowing, 3%. So we would then still have the opportunity until the closing documents are signed to back out of this agreement. It doesn't look good. It's a bad business decision. It just doesn't look good for us, but we still have the ability to back out. If we do take it and we're awarded it, it frees up whatever money we had in the issuance, the borrowing, to do something else. So then we have to collectively get together and figure out, are we going to go down Sportsman's Club? What are we going to do with that money? So long short of it, that's kind of where we're at. We are using our new engineer to help facilitate the writing of the grant with some technicalities. I tried to do it. Jack told me from day one to turn it over to him, and I didn't do it. 30 days later, I did it. 60 days later, probably I did it. I just couldn't get it done. So that's kind of where we're at. We won't know the official terms until we're awarded the loan or grant, but that's where we're at today. Now, this is also once we apply, and depending on approval timelines, it could push back the bid date of the water tower. We're looking at mid to late February for the bidding of the water tower. If we're able to get this money at 0% or grant, I think it's worth a 30 or maybe 45-day pushback of that tower. But we're also up against the maintenance of Suez of the existing tower to get this tower up. So there's a whole bunch of moving pieces on this decision that will affect a few things a few years down the road with getting the tower built in time for the maintenance of the current tower to come down, or the maintenance to take place, which brings it down. So timing's of great importance at this point. I don't know, Jack, did I miss anything?
No, that pretty well covered it. Like I said, we have a couple moving parts. Jim explained getting the new tower built before the other tower has to come down for maintenance is the key thrust of all of this. But the money looks good. Outwardly, I think we have everything that they need. He needed a couple financial things, and then he's ready to apply the application.
Now, we could just say no. I mean, we do have the bonded money. There's money there. So don't think we don't have the money, but this is an opportunity to secure some free money. And we thought it was, from an administration and staff standpoint, thought it was worthwhile.
Is this a recalculation of what this new tower is going to cost us? Because if my memory serves me, I thought we were under 2 million on the old study.
Yeah, there's been a few changes with that. You're absolutely right, Carol. We are over budget from the initial borrowing in early this year. What I'll call significantly over budget of where we were. What is good for us in hindsight is we are not doing the State Route 310 water line, so that gave us a few extra dollars, or I guess a couple of million extra dollars. We have about $1.6 million not encumbered right now. So yes, to answer your question, this was a $2.1 million water tower, and right now it's $3 million.
Okay.
And I could tell you some great stories offline if you want to talk about it over a drink.
It's fine. I'll do it.
I think, Carol, we may have done a quick overview of the financial situation at a finance meeting.
Yeah, you
Maybe
probably
not
could.
necessarily a council meeting, but you are absolutely correct.
Okay.
And there has been consolidation within the water tower building industry.
Was a,
Yeah, there's one of the water tower manufacturers has gone out of business, so there's only 2 left in the country.
Yeah, I remember that part.
Supply and demand.
and then didn't the engineer come in with a pretty low estimate?
Yeah,
That's what killed us.
oh, you want electric to the tower? You know, those kind of questions.
Now what we have done is, now this is based off the tower that we want to design and build. But when the bid does go out, I have set some alternative towers up to be bid also. So we will have a choice. You know, are we going to have the composite with the steel bolted, composite with steel welded? Spheroid is now back in the ballpark, because when this other company went out of business, it was not one of their competitors because of the way the tower's built. So now they have become competitive because the other two's prices have went up. So we will have an option when the bid is done. And the way this grant / very low interest loan works is we're going to get accepted. We're going to get our application in. We'll be all accepted, but they don't loan the money till we actually receive the bid and they know what the cost is. So we told them roughly $3 million. If it comes in at 2.6, that is all we will get. We'll get 2.6. If it comes in at 2.8, we'll get 2.8. They don't actually loan the money until the bid is in and signed.
And let's say it went over 3 million, 3.2.
We're
Okay,
stuck
what
at
would
3
you get?
million.
3?
We're stuck at the 3 million because that's all we felt we could ask for. We feel safe with that. But keep in mind, in bonded money, we have about 1.6 million sitting that we really don't have. Well, we have projects, but if we needed to borrow 100,000 out of that, we've already got it sitting in the bank.
Okay.
You're still leaving the option open on the type of tower as far as maintenance. now,
Yeah, when the
right?
price went up, I went back, revisited that to open it back up to a different other types of towers, so we could be more competitive.
Let's go back to your earlier comments about a gate that you put in with a cheap opener on it. Now it don't work, so we want to go with the better tower and not have as much maintenance.
Well, that's what we'll decide. There'll be an upfront capital cost, which the tower that we were originally looking at would have the higher capital cost with the lower downstream maintenance. I have talked to the engineers, and included in the bid, they are going to give us a life cycle cost on each one of these towers that are bid, so we can see what our upfront cost is and our downstream maintenance will be, let's say over a 20-year period. We'll be able to choose within those.
That's good information.
And right now we're going with red stripe with, actually it'll be a sticker because there's carcinogens in the red. It'll be the red band with the block Johnstown, unless someone tells us different. I don't want to lose my job over that decision, so.
I was just wondering what color. Okay, sounds great.
So Matt,
Kind of keeping it along the lines of what we currently have on our
I like
current tower. Just keep in mind, if you want something different, now is the time to make that decision, not later.
Let's make it like a mastodon.
Well, you can put a mastodon's head on it if you would so desire, but then the repaint of that will be a little more than just the block
We'll-
lettering.
We'll just
It is things you do need to keep in mind, because the real ornate towers, you can do anything you want. It's just then when you have to recoat that tower is where it gets expensive.
like a pumpkin.
Well, we have a pumpkin right down in Circleville. Yes, we do. Pumpkin Tower.
Peach.
you got a peek.
Hey,
Thank you.
Anyhow, any further questions for Jim or Jack?
I was just gonna say for the record, a grant would be great. Just saying it out loud.
I think it would be too. Anyhow, It's being introduced tonight. We're gonna have I'm gonna open a public hearing, and then we're gonna take a vote if I can get a motion. So first up is the public hearing. I'm gonna open the public hearing. I'm gonna close the public hearing. And we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move, to go ahead with it.
I'll second Carol's.
No, that's
Carol's.
Cheryl. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Teresa, call the roll, please.
Marvin Block,
Yes.
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Carol Van Diest,
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Carol Robertson,
Yes.
Doug Lehner.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I think, Jim, as soon as the paperwork's all signed and good, we need to forward that to Greg.
Yes, Teresa and Chip, when would you sign?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Because he's wanting to get that application in as quickly as he can.
Yeah,
I
I'm
told him
here.
as soon as it was signed, I'd email it to him.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
We'll take care of it. Next up is resolution 2021-02. Resolution amending the employment contract with Jim Leonard for village manager. I don't know who wants to speak to this, but I guess, Carol, do you want to, or do you want me to?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Anyhow, this was considered in budget deliberations when we passed the budget for 2021. However, the members of the finance committee felt that it should be taken to the personnel board of review. The personnel board of review, the three of us had a meeting and we passed the amendment to Jim's contract, which is in the attachment to the resolution this evening. And I think that's all the explanation we need. And I will move this.
Public comment.
Oh, we got to do public hearing. Sorry about that.
Make sure.
Oh, definitely want to make sure it's legal. So anyhow, we introduced it tonight. We're going to have a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing,
I'm good.
close the public hearing. And then I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-02.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded, and now we can have discussion among council members. Is there any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, Teresa, you want to call the roll?
Ben Lee,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Carol Van Diest,
Yes.
Mayor Dutcher,
Yes.
Cheryl Robertson,
Yes.
Doug Lehner,
Yes.
Marvin Block.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you all. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And not just with this, but for everything you do. We appreciate it.
It's fun. Every day's fun. Some days more fun than others.
And anyhow, I think, does anybody have any other business to bring before the council?
I think we need to discuss this.
We what?
I think we need to discuss some of this zoning report.
Well,
I don't know if anybody else has got anything to say or not, but we got the zoning inspection report today. And I talked to Jim about it. There's a item on here about Crestview. I understand that one. And then there's an item on here about Creekside. Letting them go ahead and build without having water and sewage in. They need an EPA permit. And I don't think anything's been done on the red light yet. I just wonder how wise that is to let them keep going in there without doing some of the things that they're supposed to have been done.
Yeah, so we are meeting, Jack and Bailey and myself are meeting with them Friday at 10 a.m. to go over 3 specific items: the traffic signal, the
Station.
upgrade to the lift station, and then the power to their existing private lift station. And iterate to them that we are not issuing zoning permits until those things are satisfied.
Good.
Yep. If I could weigh in here for a minute, definitely wanted to bring those up at our zoning meeting, but I'm glad they were brought up now. I agree with that. I think it was a big point that we made when we approved their plat the last time, that those things need to be addressed before they started building any further. So I agree with that. Also, anything else on that report, if you guys want to discuss it, we're here now. But the mini house that's being built there, I saw that as well, and I think we need some more questioning into that as well.
Yeah, personally, I just feel that needs some discussion, because if I lived across the street from that and this was going to take a year to build this thing, I'd be a little upset that was my view out my window every day. I just don't think it's fair to the neighbors. I think we need to get some further discussion to that before we're allowing this guy to, his fence took a long time to build too. So his year may be stretching to 2 at the current rate.
Marvin, was that the Crestview issue?
No, that Crestview was cleanup. That one's on down the line here. Westview Drive.
Yeah, it's a Westview.
It's on down. We'll get to it.
I thought about that too. I wouldn't want to be living next door to this guy. It's always building tiny house. I'm interested in a tiny house, but it would be in the country. What's he going to do with it? I suppose he sells it after he builds it.
I don't know what he's going to do with it. It's going to take him a year to build it in his driveway. I don't think that's.
I
If I
read
lived across the street from him, I'd be a little upset.
I read about these tiny houses. They put them up in a month.
Can I just give a little background on this?
Sure.
This person approached us and said that him and his wife would like to build a tiny home for a piece of land that they own outside of Johnstown, outside of Monroe Township. And what I think it is some sort of property that they own as a family, or something that they use as sort of like a vacation property, and that they want to build this tiny home and then move it out to that property. And he was going to cover the project with a tarp or something like that when he was not working on it. And we did express to him that if issues arose, he could always be asked to move it out of his driveway. But yeah, he's not going to leave it there forever. He would move it outside of Johnstown to wherever his secondary property is.
So we're going to let anybody in Rolling Meadows or anybody in town that wants to build a house in their driveway build it?
We allow construction trailers in a driveway for up to 1 year.
My question is, if he has property outside of Johnstown, why doesn't he go out there and build his tiny house? He's going to move it out there anyway. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm sure the neighbors will be quite upset.
I'd like to add a comment too. The way his house sits, it's a split level, and the garage is in the basement. So when you pull in, and it's not don't picture it as your typical house with a driveway up to the front of the building. The driveway comes in from the end of the house. There's a bank on each side of the driveway that's about 4 to 5 feet tall. In other words, I'm not even sure you could walk up the bank if you tried. So in this case, it was set down in this low spot. And there'll only be about 5 to 6 foot of it you would notice if you were just driving by on Westview or turned onto Lewis Drive, then you would see the whole end of the building. So we do not, there isn't anything right now that would, in zoning, there you are, Jim's got it there. There isn't anything in our zoning code right now that would prevent him from building a shed in his driveway to relocate on his property. And as Bailey mentioned, our code clearly states that you can keep a construction trailer in your driveway up to a year. Of course, he could park an RV there too in his driveway. The construction will be 11 feet from the driveway approach. As you can see there, it'll be set back in. You can see his driveway is fairly long driveway. It truly is. And he's going to build it on a 24-foot fifth wheel trailer that he already apparently owns or he's buying. So Yaz and Bailey and I were in another meeting and we discussed this. We didn't see any reason or any way to legally prevent him from doing what he's doing or has asked to do. And he agreed to the terms that we discussed among ourselves.
He's not doing anything illegal. Why does he have to agree to terms?
Just because he asked, I guess, he could have not asked and just started building it.
Yeah, so Marvin did chat with me earlier today, so I have a meeting with Bailey tomorrow to go over some of the details and figure these things out. That would be my thing too, is if we don't have a legality to stand on, then we can't have terms, I guess. So like I said, I'm going to get more information from Bailey tomorrow. We're having a meeting about some other things. So,
Well, it's kind of appointed. You send a guy over on Crestview, call his landlord up and tell him he's got to clean his place up because he's got dumpsters and stuff in the yard. I drove by both places. And then you're turning around and telling the guy over on Westview that he can build a mini house in his yard. And you got two people that live across the street that take better care of their house than most people in this town, Harriet and Jerry Pulley. Is it fair to the neighbors to do this? The guy spent a year putting a fence up down there.
Marvin, when he started building the fence, he had started on the fence and he had a child die. And I think that caused the fence to last, its construction of the fence to last a little longer. About the house on Crestview, the people that live in the house on Crestview were clearly in violation of numerous zoning codes. So that one was straightforward, and it was pointed out to me by another planning commissioner.
And I hate to hijack your council meeting with zoning issues here, guys, but I mean, there's a couple of these things that we need to talk about, and more of a proactive approach for this, kind of where the ADUs come in. I know that those aren't everybody's favorite either, but having a proactive plan in place for when those do pop up can kind of mitigate some things like this. At least if we have a framework, a very restrictive framework that shows here's what you can and can't do, we don't run into problems like this that are unforeseen. I know that ADUs, mini houses, Airbnbs, things like that, as we run out of space, are going to be things that come up, and I would like to be out ahead of them because you get some issues like this. This is going to be, as you guys can see on the Google map there, this is going to be in the front of that neighborhood. As you're coming up 62, you're going to be seeing that be built. It's right in a main area where you're going to drive through that neighborhood, so everyone is going to see this for up to a year. I'm definitely not in favor of it. But going back to what Jim is saying, we're lacking teeth in our zoning regulations here. So this is something that we need to take a look at. We may get caught on this one, but it's something that we can regulate, unfortunately, after the fact, potentially.
Well, for PUDs and different projects, we have to get notified the adjoining neighbors. And it just seems like maybe in this situation, maybe the neighbors wouldn't be that upset about it. We don't really know. I mean, unless somebody's gone out and actually talked to them, and how many neighbors are affected. I do agree what you said, Ryan, about we're all going to see it going up the road, but something to look at. So it's kind of hard when we don't have the teeth, like you said, somebody said, to actually say, no, you can't do this.
And I definitely agree with that. I don't know what you can do. We're gonna look at it. I just saw the report come up today, so I plan on taking a look at this and talking about it in zoning, and we'll go forward as far as we can. One question that I did have for Jim Blair, with that being a 24-foot trailer, I'm sure it's less than 10 feet wide, so we're under 250 square feet. So if that were to be a shed or a deck, I know it's probably going to be over 4 feet tall, but would that fall under us to review every part of the project and do different inspections like framing and things like that, so that we could possibly push him to get this under roof faster? So at least, there's worse looking RVs that are parked in people's driveways in town. At least if he gets this under roof and gets some walls on it, it won't be such an eyesore possibly.
We don't really have any authority to inspect it as it's being built, nor does Licking County Building Codes.
Since it's on a trailer.
It's on the trailer.
But if he's open to, I don't know, I'm kind of just throwing some things out. If he's open to other conditions, I mean, that's something that if this were a shed on the ground, that's movable. It would fall under us inspecting it since it's under 250 square feet, right?
Well, we don't inspect sheds either. We issue permits for sheds, and we have people that build their own sheds. Most of them will buy a pre-built shed and set it on their lot. But we have no authority again to inspect sheds.
Okay.
When you say that, Jim, though, it's an authority to inspect the construction of the shed, but we do have the authority to make sure the location of the shed is proper.
Correct. Yes, it has to be 5 foot from all property lines, and it must be at the side of the house or in the backyard.
Now, if that shed has, I mean, if there's a foundation of that shed, it's more like a garage at a certain point. I know with decks, I don't build a lot of garages, but I know with decks and things like that, if it's under 250 square feet and it has, a footer and it's under 4 feet, that falls to the village to inspect it. So I know this isn't going to apply for any of that, but
yeah,
I'm just trying to think of parameters that we may be able to negotiate here for this specific project, so that in the future we could get out ahead of it, but at least here we can mitigate some damage.
I agree. It would be think about Santa's house. I'm not sure where it was built at. Doug, if you're still on there, I don't know where you built it at. Maybe you built it inside somewhere, but that's what it would be like. That would be comparable.
We took it to a private residence and pulled it inside a barn.
Okay.
Pulled it inside a barn. It was out of sight, out of mind, and kept all the weather off of it.
That makes sense.
It took us about 2.5 months to build it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to build it in my driveway, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure I would be happy if my neighbor was building it in their driveway. But I'm not. If someone tells me how to stop this, I'll be happy to address it with the gentleman. So
Perhaps ask the neighbors their opinion. Jerry Pulley, I can just hear Jerry. Ask the neighbors.
Yeah, but
You can't. You got to go by the law, not what the
Yeah,
neighbor.
there's no sense in asking them, because if they say I don't like it, we still can't do anything to it.
yeah, that's why I want to go over with tomorrow and figure out what the things can and cannot do.
Let Jim have his meeting and figure it out.
And it sounds like Ryan's going to have a discussion about it anyway, specifically at Planning Commission.
That's great.
Anybody? We passed by the whole Pulte light thing, and I did have a question about that, because an ODOT project is coming up. I forget now what year it is. I think it's changed. Like the second phase. Do we know how ODOT's going to feel about that light, or is there any discussion about this whole situation with ODOT, or did they not even come into play on it?
they come into play, they don't care. I mean, they quite literally,
Okay.
we've had conversations with them. I've asked them can we consider a roundabout? Can we consider, a lot of other different things? And they say, yeah, that's great, but we have a project to do and please move along. So I've given up on working with ODOT at this
Okay.
point. One thing they have done is ensured that whatever they do construct will not hamper any future signal, so they're not going to put a storm grate in the middle of the road or something like that. So, but
Okay.
I wish
Mm.
it would have been nice.
Yeah.
Just like they're going to grind out 16 spots in our roadway.
Did we ever, did the punch list ever get resolved in the bill they gave to us and all of that?
No, we haven't reconciled yet.
Okay, good.
Got two more things.
Okay, Marvin.
Jim, in your report, you talked about Concord Crossing East. You got a call from Schlabach, superintendent, that they was going to stockpile 250 truckloads of topsoil in there. And you asked him to call the HOA or whatever it is, HOA, and talk to him about it. Does Schlabach realize what he's going to do to the neighbors down there? Storing that dirt?
Yes, I'm sure that he does. I'm sure it'll be handled well. In fact, there's already dirt that has been hauled in. Fondrest, Fondrest, the street that runs along the bike trail, has now been extended to its final destination, which is back behind Atrium. The curb and gutter is installed. The pavement the roadbed is ready for blacktop. I don't know, Jack maybe knows if it's been signed off on, but they won't be putting any pavement down till spring. So he's going to bring the trucks in Fondrest, drive on the pavement, and then drive on the unpaved part, and then dump the dirt. Most of the dirt will be used on, in that development. Where on your drawing there, or in your view, Jim, where the pond's at, the back side of the pond, over to the right of your arrow, that's where the dirt is being dumped. No,
With
the
this
other
being
side.
topsoil.
On
with
my
this
right.
being topsoil.
There you go, right there.
All right. With that being topsoil, where are they planning on using that?
Apparently, they're going to use it within the development. I think they might have a plan to, in my opinion, they've hinted around about maybe buying more property there from Joe Simonello, which I think we would welcome that.
I had one other thing on the report, Jim, that the bowling over there that talked to you about building a building.
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't he the same gentleman that told you 4 or 5 years ago that he would pave that lot over there and take care of that problem?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about the 9,000 square foot building?
No, sir. I'm talking about the building over off of Pratt Street. I think the owner's name is Bowling.
Oh, Ryan Bowling. Yes, he's been talking about that for a long time, and now he's at the point he's hired someone to help him put the plan together. Some guy named Chip Weber.
Okay. Are we going to do anything about the infractions that they've been doing over there? We closed John Street and we closed College Street. They're running those big trucks up and down through there. They opened them back up and put gravel in there. There's more trucks parking in the lot over there. And I pulled the records. Their easement runs right along Oilinger's building. It doesn't run out in the middle of that. And the easement's never been paved back in there that they were supposed to do to use those lots and things.
I guess, Marvin, when we're presented with plan from the gentleman. Right now, he's just talking about where the sewer line location's at. And as he develops his plan, I guess that would be the time to discuss each of those issues.
Well, didn't we discuss those issues with him when he was in business there 4 or 5 years ago about paving the parking lot?
Yes, and he, if you recall, part of his employee parking is paved. There is pavement there.
That's another one of those things I was talking to Bailey with tomorrow about getting a plan, because we can shut down access. If there are illegal access points from Track Street, I have no problem shutting them
Got
down.
them right here if you want to see them. Pulled them off the auditor's page today, and it shows exactly where the easement that they're supposed to be using is. They haven't been using. And it also, the zoning, that lot back there, I know they've been talking to the attorney about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's been decided about that fence back there, that back lot, but getting a mess over there. If you look at the pictures and things of that area, that is one mortal mess over there. And it's not fair to the other residents that live over there to let it go on.
Yeah, and I think the start of the mortal mess was the vacating of those right of ways and landlocking those properties. And then I think we got to get it figured out. And that's one of the things on my to-do list, to help Bailey and Jim and I come up with a plan to make sure
To be fair to
things are being.
Be fair to Bailey and Jim, they inherited the problem. They didn't create. Now, the guy has told Jim Blair several different stories about paving that lot over there, and Jim's tried to work with him.
Absolutely.
But he hasn't been cooperative, I don't think, has he, Jim?
No, I agree. I think it's a disaster. So
He's gonna have a meeting with them and try to figure this out.
we'll get a game plan together.
Then figure out.
Kind of attack. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it'll be written out, and that way you guys can all have the
I
steps that
just
we
wanted on the record, and I've been talking to him for a year,
at least.
over these projects over there, and very little been done.
On the positive, I see somebody's wanting to buy the train station. Do you know what their plans are?
If that goes through, he wants to put a woodworking shop in there.
Gonna have to.
Build furniture and that type thing.
He's already got a woodworking shop to work on.
Anybody else? If I don't hear anything, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We're adjourned.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.